welcome. I see the chat has already gotten started on this topic. So clearly it's a hot one. In the meantime, while I'm doing my intro, please let me know if you all have any fun vacation plans coming up. My birthday is next week, and I am so excited to be going to Acadia National Park in Maine with my pup. It's gonna be a lovely day of hiking and sightseeing and just all the beautiful New England, lovely trees and foliage. Um, Oh, can anybody else not hear me? Okay, it sounds like maybe just only one person. If there are other people having audio issues, please speak up. Oh, hang on. I wonder if that's it. Is this better? Can people hear me now? Can I get like a +1 or something? Or okay, I guess people would be complaining if they couldn't hear me. Great. Hello everyone. My name is Melanie Naranjo and I am the CPO here at Athena. We are a compliance training company. We do everything from harassment prevention and cybersecurity to hotline and case management, manager training, as well as anti-bribery and corruption. And one of the things that we have learned in all of our partnerships and all of our conversations with our customers is just how important it is to build community around some of these very tough topics, including performance management, because sometimes you need a space to vent. Sometimes it's really confidential stuff and you're scared to ask somebody, how do I fire someone in this context in a humane way, but also without getting sued? And so one of the things that we strive to do is create an environment where you all can have these conversations. We've got a very interactive group on all of these comment and all of these webinars, as you can see already from the comments. So please do feel free to start commenting, sharing questions, even while I'm doing the chat. With that said, let me go ahead and kick this off and sort of share the rules of the road with this webinar for anyone who's new. I like to make these very interactive, and we're actually going back to our roots here. Normally I have a panelist, but this time I'm just doing a workshop with you all where I'm just going to be asking you questions. I'm going to be guiding you through things, but don't worry if that's not what you signed up for and you don't want to be interactive, you just want to be a passive learner, that's okay too. In your comments, just respond with an asterisk next to your response when you are answering my question live, and that will be my signal not to call on you. I don't want the fear of being called on to be a deterrent to you participating. Okay, so with that said, we're going to be talking about why managers tolerate underperformance. And can I just to sort of get the vibes going and make sure I'm not alone here, can I get a +1 if anyone is currently struggling with this? Your CEO is like, hey, higher performance, some more AI, more automations, and your managers are like, no, thank you. That sounds really hard. I can't do it. Yeah, it is everywhere. And listen, we're going to approach with empathy, but we're going to also be a little tongue-in-cheek here because we got to have fun too. Feel free to spill the tea and always know that we will be respectful. We won't use any company names. I'll always ask questions in a vague way, like, when in your career have you experienced this, so that we're not outing anyone, okay? But lucky for you, we're going to be talking all about this today. So we'll cover common types of underperformance. We'll cover why managers avoid stepping in. And then we'll share really practical, actionable tips that you can start today if you want about what to do about it. And then, of course, we'll do a little Athena Spotlight at the end, followed by Q&A for you all. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started. In the comments, this is your first time being interactive. Again, remember, put an asterisk next to your response if you don't want to be called on. On a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you agree with the following statement? It's HR's job to performance manage employees. 5, I agree. HR needs to do this. Forget the managers telling their direct reports they're struggling. HR, come in, solve the problem. 1 being, what? I don't even manage this person. I don't even have power of control over this person. What are you doing to me? Okay, we are seeing the answers streaming in. This is always fascinating to me when I see people like on one end or the other. I see -000. Don't worry, there's an asterisk. Won't even use your name. All right, so let's call in someone who didn't put an asterisk next to their response. Let's do Remy McMillan. Am I pronouncing that correct? If not, please correct me. Remy, you give a 1. Can you please go ahead and unmute yourself? Tell me a little bit more about your response here. Have you ever had anyone try and tell you that it is HR's job to performance manage employees?
I've never had that. Our company is pretty structured with, performance management, but I think that is a line that is hard to cross if if it's like a skill set thing, a personality thing, or a personal life thing. So it could be hairy where you decide whether that's HR's job or like your job, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. So I want to make sure I'm digging in here and understanding. So you're saying like maybe a manager is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and the CEO or whoever is like, but we need to get this person out of here, or somebody needs to tell them, and their manager's not doing HR. Can you just do it? Is that sort of what you're describing?
I'm describing like the situation, like maybe it's environmental that they're not performing because we're remote.
Yeah.
So it could be environmental, or maybe they have a hard like thing happening in their life. So that could be more of an HR thing
Oh,
versus
I see.
like performance thing. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Okay, thank you, Remy. Appreciate you sharing. Let's call on one other person, see how they're feeling about it. I'm actually going to call on Kim Anarud, and please correct me if I'm mispronouncing that. You gave a 3. You were closer to the middle. I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about what your experience has been with this and why you're in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's honored. It's a difficult one, so don't worry about it.
No, thank you for correcting me.
Yeah. So I think the reason that I'm falling in the middle here is one, I mean, I don't believe that it's my job as, an HR person on my HR team to be monitoring the performance of every individual employee, giving them feedback. But I do believe it's at least in the way that our company is set up, we're a smaller company, and I do have a line of sight into these performance issues. And I think where I come in and provide that support, and why I'm leaning a little bit more of a 3, is that I am performance managing to an extent our managers and our leadership team to ensure that they are able to trickle down and be providing that feedback and be following up and kind of like, I guess I'm reading this question a little bit more in the employee relations and performance management camp from an oversight perspective. But I think it can be a little bit more nuanced and complex, because I think what we have seen is that if HR is fully removed from this and just leaves it up to the managers, there's often complications that happen.
Ooh, okay, that's really fascinating. Kim, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Can we get, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, Kim.
No, I just said, of course.
Yeah, thank you. Can we get a +1 for anyone in the comments who is listening to Kim and agrees here? Like, yeah, it is our job though to be coaching the manager in this process. Okay, so you are not alone, Kim. I hope you are seeing the love here. I agree entirely. I don't think it is our job to performance manage other people's direct reports for them. But I do believe fundamentally that it is HR's job to equip managers with the tools necessary to do it themselves. And of course, in the moment, right, you can coach them, like Kim was saying. But the long-term goal, right, is that they can do this self-sufficiently, that you are training them appropriately such that they only pull you in for really complex situations. Because let's be real, we are so busy and drowning. I know that everybody says AI is going to replace HR. What work is HR going to have left? Trust me, there's a ton of work. Okay, AI is maybe just going to like free us up to do some of the backlog work that we haven't been able to do for years. Okay, but we have so much work that we're not going to have time to handle every single performance management issue. And so, to the extent possible that we can have managers running autonomously and then only surfacing or escalating issues as they get more complex, the better. So with that said, let's talk about some common underperformance types. And I find that this next slide is where people get pretty hyped. So I'm telling you now, as I go through these, please give me a +1 in the comments if any of these performance types sound familiar to you, if you have experienced them at some point throughout your HR career, okay? I have found historically, in my experience, that underperformers typically fall under one of the following categories, okay? Get ready for your +1s, okay? The try hard. They're trying so hard. Bless their souls. They're not bad people. They're not lazy. They haven't emotionally or mentally checked out. They just, unfortunately, they can't quite cut it. The skill set is not there. It's not aligned with the needs of the role. The nice one. Everyone loves them. They're amazing. They're so sweet. They bring in cupcakes. They bring in the vibes. They're always remembering everyone's birthday. But their work, not so much, right? The inconsistent IC. When they're great, they are phenomenal. By the way, your comments are hilarious. So I'll keep them coming, please. It's so entertaining to me. The inconsistent IC. They are so great when they are great. And then when they're not great, it's like, what are you doing? Are you here? Are you checked out? Are you employed here? Do you have 2, 3 jobs going on? Because I don't know. It's just like this. All right. The quiet quitter, totally checked out. Only offers the bare minimum. You ask for something at 5:01 on the dot, and it's too late. They're unavailable. Can't reach them. Oh, triggered. I'm so sorry, Tiffany. Uh, the brilliant jerk. Listen, their actual results, flawless. The ARR they're bringing to the company, amazing. Are they fun to work with? Absolutely not. Miserable, people feel anxiety, people will literally do everything in their power to work around them and avoid having to have a conversation with them. And then finally, the one that brings me the most anxiety in my day-to-day, the attorney. Turns everything into an argument. Sometimes they even go into real attorney mode and they start using legal terms as soon as you say something that they don't like, as soon as they realize that that their performance is not where it needs to be. Okay, yeah. I am seeing I hope that this has been maybe some trauma bonding for you, that you all can connect with each other, be friends with each other, know that you're not alone. All right, I'm going to call on someone that didn't put an asterisk next to their response. Let's do Kara Schaefer. And remember, I will always ask a question in a way that doesn't put you or your company on the spot. You gave oof +1. Talk to me just a little bit throughout your HR career. Which of these really resonates with you? Which have you seen the most? And what's the impact?
Good question. So my oof was in response to the brilliant jerk. I think I've seen all of these though, many of them very often. I just had experience with the try hard just a few weeks ago, and my past career, I've seen all of them though.
Yeah.
My oof was really that brilliant jerk though, and just the overall impact that that brilliant jerk has across the org, not just with those direct reports, not just with those teams, but really just kind of a nuisance across the board when trying to, facilitate trainings, when trying to push for feedback, all of those things. It's tough when you are working against a leadership team that may value, the piece that is good for business over the experience that people are having as a result.
Kara, can I ask, not to put you on the spot, but uh, thinking about the brilliant jerk and thinking about the business, especially as understandably people continually push people leaders to be more business minded, to think of ourselves as not people leaders, but business leaders. When you think about a dilemma like the brilliant jerk, who is doing great things for quote unquote the business, in your opinion, should the brilliant jerk be tolerated? Is that actually a performance issue if at the end of the day they are benefiting the business and bringing in more ARR, for example?
I think it's a huge challenge. I think it's a behavioral issue that should be dealt with. It should not be tolerated. There needs to be conversations had at multiple levels. There needs to be, of course, that feedback being shared, managing up, from those direct reports. There should be feedback shared anytime someone leaves as a result, sharing those exit interviews with that person. And there should be that follow-up with that executive team to work on managing through expectations of our leaders, and understanding that the impact that certain leaders may have on the org. And, the bottom line is if we lose good people as a result, are they really good for business?
Kara, I love it so much. And I don't know if you can see in the comments, but people are loving what you're saying, super agreeing. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the brilliant jerk example towards the end. I will honestly share like exactly word by word how to fight this. Thank you so much, Kara. Really appreciate you sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Let's call on one more person. Tiffany Kim, I can't help it. Your comments are hilarious. I'm like dying here as I see them on the side. Can you share a little bit more about looking through this list? Which of these sort of stands out to the most to you? And how does it feel to you as an HR person? And how do you think it feels to the manager who's experiencing this?
I mean, I think I was triggered because
I've seen every single one, and they're all really common. I think at my place today, the nice one is probably the one I see the most. We have a value at the company, and it's to be a good peep. And I think that value kind of overrides even like the performance aspect of like how well they are actually doing in there. And so I think our managers are also, good peeps. And so then they have a hard time having the hard conversation with someone who's so nice and seen as such a positive force in the company.
Yeah, it's such a tough one, I have to say, because I think oftentimes if it's, if the person's just an asshole or the person's not even trying, it's a little bit easier to emotionally detach. When it's genuinely just a good person, it just feels so much harder. You don't want to part ways. You want to give them a chance. And of course, it can unfortunately sometimes be at odds in the business, at odds with the business. And I'll say, one of the things that I always recommend for anybody who has a value like that is your values should balance each other out. So at Athena, for example, we have a value that's play to win, which means like really you are in it to win it. You are doing everything in your power to succeed. And also that doesn't mean working till midnight or being an asshole or whatever the case may be. And so we have other values that balance it out. So if you don't have that already, I'd think about it. And if you do have them, I would think about how do you remind people, hey, but not to the detriment of this other value. Tiffany, thank you so much for sharing and also for your lovely pup picture. It is the cutest. And as a fellow pup lover, I will actually show everyone. I've always got Hermie on my lap here. Hi, puppy love. One day we should just do a puppy social and everyone shows their camera and their dogs and their cats and their possums and whatever pet you have. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing. All right, so with that said all, we get it. This sucks. Some of them are stressful. Some of them are just depressing. Some of them really pull at your heartstrings. So what do we actually do about it? And I hope, by the way, I really appreciate that you all are continuing to chat in the comments. Feel free to have your own conversations, share your tips, your resources, your success stories. You all are learning from each other here. So what do we do about it? Oh, sorry. Whoops. Why do managers actually let these things slide before we do about it? Before what do we do about it? First of all, I have found that it comes down to three things: fear, unclear expectations, and managers thinking they're the problem. So I'm actually going to ask in the comments, and I probably won't call on anyone this time because I want to make sure we have enough time to get through everything. Give me a 1, 2, or 3 as I'm reading through these to let me know which one feels the most relevant or the most common to you. So 1, managers are letting things slide because they're just scared. Whether they're scared of being unliked, right? Maybe they used to be the person's peer, then they got promoted, whether it's they don't want to hurt the person's feelings, or they don't want to create an awkward working relationship. Oh, I'm going to say this tough thing, and suddenly it's going to be so hard to work with them, and I've got to, navigate that, and other people are going to find out on the team. Maybe they are worried that in the process of letting the person go, they're not going to get a backfill. So you know what? I'm just going to put up with this rather than say something, lose the person, and then I don't get the budget to get someone else in this role. I'd rather have half a person than no person. Okay, I'm already seeing like a ton of, this is great. Number 2, unclear expectations. The manager literally has no idea that they should be holding their direct report accountable to higher standards. They think that this is as good as can be done and that, their job as a manager is, of course, to balance out or like make up for the difference. Or 3, they think they're the problem. So every time they bring you something and you say, okay, sounds like a performance issue, they say, well, maybe I didn't set clear enough expectations. I don't think I set them up for success. You know what? Their plate is really full, even though if their plate were that full, they would not be behaving the same way in that same context. Okay, let me read through some comments because you all are going just like off the charts here. Maybe I will call on someone. Okay, let's do Zena, Zena, Zena Blom. Just because you say, oh my gosh, one, tell me a little bit more. I love hearing a little fear story.
Hi, yeah, my name is Zena. I have a lot of managers who were great in the field, but not really trained to be managers and plopped into positions where they absolutely have no idea what they're doing.
Okay, Zena, before we go further, can we just pause in the comments? Give me a +1 if you have managers either at your current company or in the past who were promoted to people manager positions without ever receiving any manager training. Oh, Zena, what goes through your mind as you see this and see just how not alone you are?
That does make me feel better. It also makes me a little sad.
Why does this happen? Why do we not train managers?
I know where I work, it's all the way up to the top really are not very good at management. So they don't know how to train someone if they don't do it right. So I have to hold hands, like literally hold hands to get through any process.
So it starts at the top. It's
Yeah.
not even your frontline managers.
Correct.
Even at the leadership level, they do not understand the basics of
Yeah.
effective management. You
Mhm.
know what? I'm going to ask this question to the comments, and then I'm going to ask you to react to it, Zena. In the comments, can you give me a +1 if either in your current job or at a past job, you have ever had a leader, maybe even a CEO, who was conflict avoidant? Was scared of confrontation and to have the tough conversation. Isn't that wild? Zena, are you surprised by this?
No, I'm not actually, because my number one comment to anyone I work with is confrontation does not have to be negative.
Oh, tell me more.
You can turn it into a positive, constructive criticism type of conversation versus you're just doing this all wrong. And managers don't know how to do that.
I love that so much. There is such a monumental difference between saying you suck at your job and nobody likes you and saying, hey, the team has seen really great X from you. What we'd love to see is more of Y. Here's the reason behind that. We believe that this could have so much higher impact. Let's partner together on how we make that happen. Or this was the reason that people were inspired to join in the first place. We'd love to go back to our roots. Let's talk about how we get back on track. Suddenly less scary, less confrontational. Zena, one last question before I let you go here. Why do you think so many senior leaders get so far in their careers without ever having learned how to have conflict, how to face conflict head on?
The number one answer is I think they're really good bullshit artists. I think they can bamboozle people and then they push it off on people beneath them and it just rolls downhill.
Oh, everyone, give Zena a nice round of applause. Zena, I don't know if you can see this. The emojis are all over the place.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was a good one. Oh, I love that. Okay, all. That was, I don't know about you, that was very energizing for me. So let's finally talk about, all right, we're here, we're bought in, we've had a little moment to vet and let loose. What do we actually do about it? How do we be solution oriented? Here are a couple of strategies that work. And please note that I am not saying that one solution will work as is for all companies. I'm saying that these are good strategies as starting points to think about how you could effectively apply something like this at your job, understanding the nuances of your culture, your company structure, and all of that. So with that said, first quick pulse check. Scale of 1 to 5, how much do you agree with this following statement? A manager's job is to have their direct reports back. 5 being super agree, that's their only job, have your direct reports back. 1 being, no, I'm here to just make sure you get your job done. Ooh, okay. This question I have found surprisingly garners a mixed reaction from people. I'm going to call in a couple people because I want to make sure that we're getting clarity here. And I'm going to call in someone who doesn't have an asterisk next to their response. Let's do Samantha Burks. You're pretty high on this scale. You're saying 4. I like pretty much think that it is a manager's job to have their direct reports back. Tell me a little bit more about what you mean when you say this.
I think that when I first saw this question, I thought, well, kind of half and half, right? You're also representing the company, but that ideally that's a win-win situation where you can be getting the best outcomes for the company and for the individual. And so having a direct reports back isn't kind of in opposition, or in an ideal world, it shouldn't be in opposition to the company's best interests. And so that's why I pushed it up to a 4.
I think that's really fair. And I think I'm picking up what you're putting down, Samantha. Before I comment further, I'm going to call on someone else and then we're going to compare the two. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that very thoughtful response. Let's call on Karen Green. Karen, you gave a 2, so you were on the other end here. Why do you think it's not a manager's job to have their direct reports back?
Hey, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, so I don't think it's the only responsibility. I think that you set the guardrails for what good looks like through your behaviors, and your team and managers should follow along. And so in those guardrails, you set the example. If you set the appropriate examples and you have the appropriate policies, then you would by default be supporting them, but you're not giving them full reign to do anything that they choose to do.
Love that so much. And I don't know if you can see, but you're getting some support as well in the comments. I think that both of you are right here. I think it is somewhere in the middle. And in fact, the way that I define it is I think a manager's job comes down to just 2 things. 1, their job is to hold their team accountable to high standards. And 2, their job is to empower their direct reports to achieve those high standards. The reason that I frame it more in this way when I'm defining it to managers, as opposed to like have their backs or this and that, is because sometimes people can misinterpret what that means, right? If they think that it's their job to protect their employees, what will they do when their direct report comes to them and says, I'm overworked, I'm burnt out? Karen, I actually can see that you're still unmuted, so I will call on you. Karen, what do you think a manager who thinks their job is to protect their direct report will do when their direct report comes to them and says, I'm overworked, my bandwidth is too heavy. Oh, and by the way, this person was so mean to me today. Can you fix it?
Yeah, it's I call it caving in, which is they forget about the role they're supposed to play and they become a buddy instead of a leader. And fall into that trap where, oh yeah, it's okay, I'm so sorry, they apologize or they make excuses. None of those are leadership behaviors that are that I would hold my managers to in a perfect world.
Yeah. And then Samantha, since you're still here with us, what do you think is the impact here if a manager responds and says, oh my gosh, you're overworked, I'm so sorry, let me just take that off your plate? What is the impact if their first response is, I'm going to protect you, I'm going to take that off your plate? Seems like you have too much on your plate.
I would say that that's the opposite of having their back, right?
Ooh, yes, tell me more.
It's a short-term fix, not a long-term solution.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. Because in the process, you have not helped them understand how to prioritize effectively. You have not taught them how to make sure that they are working efficiently, right? And so really what's going to happen is that they are never going to learn. They are never going to stretch and grow. And so that is why it is so important that when we are defining a manager's job to a manager, we don't give them a 9-page document that they're never going to read. We don't use really nebulous terms that are subject to interpretation, like having their back, protecting them. We get very specific. Your job is to hold them accountable to high standards, and then your job is to empower them to achieve those high standards. And if the behavior that you are doing does not feed into one of those buckets, then you are not doing your job as a manager. So if as a manager, you are just immediately fighting that person's battles for them, are you holding them accountable to high standards? No. Are you empowering them to achieve high standards? No, you are not. And so when you keep it really simple, 1, it's easy to remember, and 2, it's very easy for them to conduct pulse checks on themselves. Is this thing that I'm doing, is this helping them? Is it holding them accountable to high standards, or is it empowering them? And if it's not, then you are probably moving in the wrong direction as a manager. Okay, so let's do another pulse check. 1 to 5, how much do you agree with the following statement? All my managers struggle to identify performance issues until it's gotten so bad that they just want to fire them. And so the first time I hear about something, it's, hey, can we fire this person? It's just horrible. They're not working out. So 5 is I agree. Managers never loop me in. And then by the time they do, it's time to let the person go. 1 is, what are you talking about? As soon as there's even like a little bit of a thing, they pull in HR. All right, seeing lots of responses here. Okay. Seeing a little bit of a spread, but for the most part, I'm seeing people on the higher end. Let's call on Felice Samargo. I don't see an asterisk next to your response. Felice, let me know if I'm mispronouncing that. Tell me why you responded with a 4 to this question. I'll give you a quick second. I can see you've unmuted, but I don't know if you're having technical difficulties.
I am. Oh my. Can you guys see me?
You're on. Can't see you, just hear you.
I mean, hear me. Yes. Technology.
Love.
Yeah, I gave 4 because yeah, I'm always getting pulled when it's like so bad and
Yeah.
yeah, they just want to fire them. And
And
we're trying
why do you go ahead?
go ahead.
Why do you think that happens? Why do they wait so long to tell you?
I think they just don't want to admit
Mm,
their they don't want to face their, shortcoming, so to speak. So they're just like, no, I can deal with this, I can do this, I can until they actually cannot, and the situation is really bad. In my company, we have a structure where, as soon as you identify something that your employee is not performing,
mm,
then you should identify, just call up on us, HR, let's have a talk. If there needs to be a coaching plan, let's see within like 45 days, can we turn that around and stuff like that. But sometimes it's just they don't want to go through that process. They always their priorities is always on the business, right? So
mm. It, can I ask, of the times when they finally do bring something to you and it's too late, how often have they given the necessary feedback versus how often is it that you find that they haven't been giving feedback along the way? It's just been getting worse and worse and worse.
funny you said that. It's very interesting because in my experience, um the managers,
Yeah.
the feedback is so soft.
Oh, I know. You're like, did you tell them? Yeah, I did. And then you ask
Yeah.
them, what did you say? And they
Yeah.
say it at all.
Yes, and when I saw like how the feedback is, and it was like, oh my God, this is so soft. We can be more clear, and a lot of it is truly just these managers. They're new, so they don't know how to be manager,
Oh,
how to be proper people manager.
I
So
That's such a powerful statement. Everybody give Felice some hearts, some love.
thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Thank you so much for sharing. And I don't know if you saw this. Definitely take a look at the comments while I'm chatting, Felice. You
Mhm.
really drove some interesting discussion in the comments. I saw a couple of people say several things about, to your point, newer managers. One is they see it as a personal failure. So for them, having to fire someone means they didn't manage them correctly, as opposed
Mhm.
to understanding that part of being a good manager is knowing when it's time to part ways, knowing when
Mhm.
you've identified just like a misalignment in the needs
Mhm.
versus ability. And then 2, I really liked somebody had said, listen, the feedback was given, but it probably wasn't clear. Maybe the severity of the issue, this is not a nice to have, this is a need to have. And if you don't fix this, your job is going to be at risk, is not clear. And so we're going to talk about that in the next slide.
Mhm.
Please.
Thank you.
Of course. So a couple of things that I like to throw out, and this is a pro tip that we actually have pulled from our own Athena Manager training suite, which happy to chat more about if anybody ever has questions. I actually very happily wrote some of the modules for this training. It was a lot of fun. You want to make it easy for your managers to measure performance. You don't want them to get stuck in the weeds of, is this my fault? Or, well, but they're trying really hard. Maybe I haven't given them enough time. Or, well, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not, right? You want it to be very clear. Are they ultimately having the output and the impact that we hired them to have? And so at Athena, we actually do this thing once a quarter. At the start of every quarter, we have all managers meet with their skip levels, and they have to live do a performance pulse check on all of their direct reports. The key here is you can't make it complicated and you can't make it time consuming. Nobody has extra time in the day. You have to do things that they can easily fit into their existing one-on-ones. This is a 3-question pulse check that takes all of 10 seconds per employee to do. 1, is this person ultimately making my job easier or harder? And I'm not talking about things like, oh, they make my job harder because they ask me for specifics when I give them feedback. I'm talking about the work that I gave them to do. The quality they put out there was so bad that I had to go back and redo it for them. Every time I give them an assignment, I have to handhold them so closely along the way that I might as well just have done it myself, right? Or every time I give them feedback, it's an argument. They never listen. It's a pushback. It's so adversarial that we can't even get through a one-on-one because the whole time is spent venting, complaining, pushing back, right? 2, how would I feel if this person quit? Relieved or panicked? And if you are concerned, by the way, that one of your people will say like, oh, I'd be panicked, but it's only because I wouldn't have a backfill, then change the question, right? If I could replace the person with a snap of my fingers today with anyone of my choosing, would I take that opportunity? Because I can promise you, if you have a high performer, the answer is hell no. They're great. Why would I replace them? But if the question is iffy, right? Now you've got a problem. And the third one, if I could go back in time, knowing what I know today, would I hire this person again? Again, the key here is you're removing the emotion, you're removing subjectivity, you're removing the inputs of like, well, they do this, but they don't do that. You are focused on the impact. Are they ultimately driving the impact that you would want a high-performing direct report to drive? And if the answer is no, it doesn't mean that you immediately fire the person, okay? The point of this is to quickly suss out performance issues so that you can address them while there's still time to actually turn things around versus waiting until it's too late. All too often, give me a +1 in the comments if you have ever had a manager who didn't realize there was performance issue until it was time to write performance reviews, until it was time to think about a promotion, until there was this really big project that got dropped, and now their manager is breathing down their back about why this didn't happen. The goal is to, okay, lots of people. The goal is not, hey, if you can't answer these questions really, positively, they're fired. The question is, ooh, you had to pause. You had to really think through this. Whether you realize it or not, that means that there's a performance issue. That means that this person is not currently performing at a high performance level. Therefore, let's take action. Maybe you as a manager are not setting clear expectations, but maybe they are coasting and you need to hold them accountable to higher standards, right? Okay, let's do another pulse check, okay? Is this shared in any way, shape, or form with a team member or only with upper management from Dominic? Okay, that's a great question. We don't do things in secrecy at Athena. We're pretty open. And so if the manager, first of all, our employees all know that these are the questions that we ask once a quarter. That's all like publicly available. So they know how we're like measuring performance. But second of all, yes, if there was an issue, you would address it directly and we would frame it in a motivational but not sugar-coated way. Hey, as you know, we were just doing our quarterly performance pulse checks, and I have to be honest with you, as I was going through them for you, I realized that I had to pause when I was answering some of these. I bring this to you now because I hired you for a reason. It's because you're a rock star. And the worst thing I, as your manager, could do would be to sit on this feedback and not give you a chance to partner with me on how we get to a place where I can answer these questions with so much more confidence. So let's talk through where I was hesitating and help me understand where the gaps are. And some of it could be that I, as your manager, am not meeting you halfway. And some of it might be that actually you have not been putting in the necessary effort. You didn't have clarity on what I needed from you, whatever the case may be. But let's have this conversation now so that we don't have to have a much harder conversation 30, 60, 90 days from now. So yes, we're very transparent with our direct reports, and it's really a matter of how do you frame it, but not do you say the thing. You're going to say the thing. It's just a question of like, how do you say the thing to most effectively set them up for success? I see there's other stuff going in the comments, but I don't have enough time to read it all. So we're going to do a quick pulse check. Scale of 1 to 5. How much do you agree with the following statement? My managers never sugarcoat feedback. So 5. Sugarcoat? No way. They're so brutal. 1 being, sometimes they tell me they've told the person their job is at risk. And when I ask what they actually said, what they said was, oh, I'd love it if you could do more of X. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, seeing a lot of scores on the lower side. Let's see if there's, let's do Holly. Holly, I'm not pronouncing your last name correctly, but there's a road by me called Tunnelly, so I'm going to say Tunnelly, and you can correct me. Holly, tell me a little bit more about why you responded to one here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I of course struggle with managers, you know, just like you said, saying like, okay, what did you actually say to the employee? Especially when it comes to like a very serious potential termination discussion. Like, what did you actually say to them? How clear is it that, again, their job is you know, things are progressing. So that's always my question. And I always get a very, very mixed, like some managers are really good with being very clear, but most managers are like, well, I don't really know if they know that they're, you know, they're in trouble or whatever. I'm like, all right, well, let's start over. So
At least they acknowledge it. In fact, Holly, I'm gonna
Yeah.
ask you like one follow-up tough question. But don't worry, you can answer it in the way that you want. First off, have you ever had to fire someone
yes,
for performance reasons?
yes,
Okay. Have you ever had the unfortunate experience of terminating someone and by terminating, obviously the manager said it, but then you were there to facilitate.
yep.
Have you ever had the experience where that person was shocked? They had no idea that a termination was on the table.
It has, but for the most part, I believe that the manager did sort of deliver the message. It's just, I always like to say, like, employees are going to hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And usually it kind of lands in the middle of like, how clear were you? But yeah, I've been in a couple where, I mean, they were surprised, but given kind of the background, I'm like, you were on a PIP, you had this, you had that. What you shouldn't have been surprised, but I'm never surprised, right? I'm never surprised by someone being like, oh wow, I had no idea I had performance concerns. I'm like, well, I've been pretty involved in this, and I think it was pretty clear that you did. So yeah, that's happened.
Okay, thank you so much for Holly for sharing.
Yeah.
And what I really appreciate in particular about what you've shared is just like the multifaceted approach and complexity to these situations, right? Sometimes managers, they're not as clear as they think they are, or they're aware that they're not being that clear, but they're struggling because it's scary. It's hard to say the thing. How do you say the words? Your job is at risk. I think I'm going to have to fire you. And then on the other hand, let's have empathy for the employee too, right? It could be, yes, they heard what they wanted to hear, or it could be the manager said it in such a way, but they had previously given similar feedback and nothing bad had happened. So how are they to know that this time it was more serious? So empathy all around for this very nuanced, complex thing. And so what I would like to do is provide for you all some tips to help reduce the ambiguity and the complexity and make it really, really simple. I'm pulling from our Athena manager training again. There are two things that we do to make feedback feel less burdensome, less scary, and then to make it clearer. So number one, give me a +1 in the comments if you just find that managers struggle to give feedback in their day-to-day. They are so busy in their one-on-ones. Their one-on-ones actually just become like a status check. It's just a list of like ongoing projects, check in, like, did you do the thing? Okay, what's happening? Maybe venting, maybe gossiping. Yeah, but they don't actually take the time to do feedback and talk about career growth, right? So at Athena, one of the things that we have done is we've just integrated feedback into the structure of our ways of working. And so our one-on-ones are actually alternating. So every one-on-one is like a regular one-on-one, and every other one-on-one is feedback one-on-one, which we call a feedback Friday. And we keep the two separate. We don't overlap the two, because what ends up happening inevitably is that the status checks take over your feedback. And for the record, status checks can be done async regardless, but I get it. People are busy. It's easier to do live sometimes. And so one of the things that we do is we do feedback on yourself, your manager, and the team. And then for the manager, it's yourself, your direct report, and the team. And it's one thing that I am doing well, or you are doing well, or the team is doing well, and one thing that I could do better, you could do better, or the team could do better. And I'll actually throw here, and if we have any Athena employees on the call, spoiler alert, because we haven't shared this yet, but we're thinking about it. One of the things that we're thinking of doing as we're thinking about how to drive AI adoption more is actually adding a question to this pulse check, which is what's one way that I'm really effectively experimenting with or leveraging AI, and what's an area where I'm effectively leveraging AI and what's an area where I haven't really thought about it, but I probably should, or that could benefit from AI. And the reason being that, again, this is just already integrated into ways of working versus asking people to take out more time out of the day or separately think of something else. It's like, no, you already meet for your one-on-one. So let's just alternate. One one-on-one is for your status checks and whatever else you need to do, coaching, mentorship, blah, blah, blah. And then the other one is just dedicated feedback time. The second one, which is my personal favorite, is we color code all of our feedback. So when you are giving that feedback, you color code it. Yellow is a nice to have. This is no risk. This is just a stretch opportunity. If you don't do it, it truly doesn't matter, but I think you could be really good at this. I'd love to put you on this, right? Orange is you're not going to get fired if you don't improve here. But if you don't improve, you're not going to be eligible for an increase or a promotion. Reason being, you're not growing in your skill set. Your market value, therefore, is not increasing. Why would I pay you more? Red being danger, danger. Failure to improve quickly and meaningfully will lead to job loss. And the reason why this color coding has worked so effectively is that it is so much easier to say, I'm really sorry, but this is a red, than it is to say, I'm really sorry, but if you don't work on this quickly, we're going to have to fire you. And so when I ask managers, did you say the thing? It is very easy to say, yeah, it was in red. And when I ask a direct report, hey, are you clear on how serious this is? Yeah, it was a red, right? And when managers start to get wishy-washy or sugarcoating and they didn't use the color coding, this language is so common in our culture that the direct report will manage up and say, hey, you're making me nervous. Is this an orange or a red? And by the way, it works great for the very like type A overachievers too, because they think everything's a red, and the manager can say, no, this is a yellow, don't panic. I would love for you to work on this, but it's a yellow, your job's not at risk, you're doing a great job. By the way, all of these resources and tips, these are just some of the resources and tips that we share in our full Athena manager training suite. We've got ethical management, we've got managers for training for first-time managers, we've got trainings for how to go from being an IC and a peer to someone to becoming their manager for the first time, what changes, what jokes used to be funny are not funny anymore because now you're the manager. There's a different power dynamic. So if you're interested, definitely check that out. And a follow-up email will send you a link to a preview link, like a free link to our preview our training if you'd like. But also we will share some follow-up free resources, including our performance management template and some of these things that we're chatting about here. Okay, I'm going to move things along just because we're short on time. So I'm going to skip that pulse check question and say, I encourage you all to make sure that you're making it easy for your employees to ask for help. If your employees are only associating you with firing people, they're not going to reach out to you early on. They're going to wait till the last minute because they're going to be worried that if they say something to HR, HR is going to try and pressure them to fire someone. So I would be really transparent about what your performance management process is. And I'll say transparently, this is something that we are continually working on at Athena. And we've actually decided that we're actually just going to have a performance management policy that we're going to share with the company that says, like, this is how we manage performance issues, step 1 to step 3. If you ever have any questions, reach out. And that way, if we're ever having performance issues with an employee, we can just, link them to it and say, like, hey, I know your manager had this tough conversation with you. I just want to remind you our process. Let me know if you have any questions, because the more transparent you can be, the better. Manager community building. Not everything has to be, a super heavy lift, time consuming, 9-part series. It could just be as simple as, hey, the first Monday of every, or maybe on a Friday, the first Friday of every month, we're going to have an optional group coaching session for managers. Come in and you can share with, I'm going to pair you in groups and breakout groups, and you can talk about whatever challenges you're facing with your direct reports, and, partner on it and peer coach each other as managers. And then balance, right? Make sure you're not just asking about what's going wrong. Make sure you're asking about the good stuff too. Who are your key players and what are you doing to retain them? Who on your team is at high risk for burnout and what can we do to mitigate that? And then finally, I want to flag when your leadership team is the problem. We're going to skip this because we're short on time. So I do want to encourage you all to know your audience when you are trying to flag issues to your leadership team. We talked about this early on in this session where, sometimes you have the brilliant jerk, for example, and it's just really hard to convince your leadership team, like, hey, this is important, whether it's, having a confrontational discussion that they don't want to have, or it's, making a really tough decision about restructuring the team. And so you want to think about things like financial impact. You want to focus on things like speed and quality of, goal attainment and projects going out. You want to think about customer optics. Those are things that are going to really perk up your leadership team's ears. It's not going to be things like morale, engagement, happiness, satisfaction. It's the right thing to do. It's not fair. I hear you, and I'm connecting the dots to, at the end of the day, it's not good for business. But if you're talking to a member of the leadership team or your CEO, what they want to hear right now is, what is the impact to our finances? What is the impact to our goals? What is the impact to our customers? Okay, so let's look at an example. Let's look at an example of this in action with the brilliant jerk conundrum. So let's say commonly, this is how I see it brought up. Hey, there's a brilliant jerk, they're miserable to work with, blah, blah, and your CEO responds, I know they're difficult to work with, but they're bringing in a lot of revenue for the company and we just need to work around it. Give me a +1 if you've ever had that response. Okay, and then when they respond that, if you respond with, they're making everyone miserable, but they made an employee cry, or like, but so-and-so quit because of them. I heard about it in the exit interview. This is the 3rd time it's come up, right? Those things are very easy to be pushed aside because it's like, yeah, I know that's tough, but like, get over it because they're bringing in ARR. What do you want me to do? Like, I'm thinking about the business. What are you thinking about? Obviously, you're thinking about the business, right? And so responses that work and show and connect the dots between what you're saying and what they're saying are things like, the amount of revenue that this person brought in last year makes up less than 1/4 of the money that we spent navigating legal claims, backfills, and lowered productivity as a result of their behavior. In fact, I know for a fact that we didn't close this, and that deal, and it was a direct result of this problem that this person caused, right? You want to point to really clear specifics that impact revenue. Or we need to think strategically. If this person quits tomorrow and then the only person that we have invested in, how are we going to come back from that? We cannot put all of our eggs in one basket, right? These are things that really help your CEO think about it from the business perspective, but through the people lens, right? And really understanding how to connect the dots, all right? With that said, I know we are short on time, so let me do a very quick Athena Spotlight, and then I will take your Q&As. All right, and please put in your questions if you haven't already. So if you are interested in our Athena Manager training or any of our trainings, one of the things that we really like to promote is the fact that we offer a test out. We know that it's really hard getting buy-in for trainings, right? A common CEO statement is every hour spent on training is an hour not producing revenue. And so one of the things that we have seen a lot of success with among our customers is test out. And so what our customers will do is they'll say, okay, I hear you. What we're going to do is we're going to have an assessment that goes out. And if the managers can effectively answer these 5 questions, then guess what? They don't have to answer, they don't have to take the test. They have tested out. But if they fail those questions, right? If they answer, is it appropriate to touch your direct report's butt? And they say yes, guess what? You know what? They are going to have to take that training. And honestly, I think you should be happy about this because I'm really glad that we taught this person that is not appropriate, right? So you can really think about like, how hard do you want to make this assessment? How easy do you want to make this assessment? And it just makes it easier to only assign it to the people who actually need it, as opposed to mandating it for everyone across the board. And I will say that we've already done our first case study, and one of our customers saved, I think it was like over 400 hours within the first week of applying the test out function across their suite of trainings with us. AI translations. So we are a very AI forward company. And so that if you're a global company and you have employees who speak multiple languages, but you don't have the internal manpower or person power to do this yourself, you can literally either take our training and translate it into any language in, I'm telling you, minutes. You just click a button. Here is literally a screen grab of this. Or you can create your own in-house training, upload it to our platform, and translate it into as many languages as you want for free. We also have content customization. So again, AI forward, we literally have animated versions of our training. So harassment prevention, manager training, all that stuff. And you can literally say, you know what, this avatar, so the avatar being the character, doesn't really, match our employee vibe. I want to change their clothing to be more formal because that's our culture. I want it to be more casual. I want the background to look like a work from home setting. You can do whatever you want. You can change the language. You can go in and edit directly. You can also work with our reps, but you can do it yourself if you don't want to do that. And that way you can just move more quickly. And then we also let you do in-app creation. So if you don't have a content creator to create your own trainings, you can use ours as a content creator. If you have onboarding trainings or sales specific trainings that you want to do that are specific to your culture, you can leverage our platform for that. Or for example, if you want to take our manager training, but you want to add on a note from your CEO to do that, you can as well. Again, if you're thinking about manager training, really, we have like the full suite of resources for you, and you can edit and customize them as you like. Or if you really want to start from scratch, you could literally send us a transcript of what it is that you want to cover in your manager training. Again, we have like limitless modules that you can mix and match to create one, but if you wanted to create one yourself from scratch, you could send us a script and we would film it for you in our studios. And reminder that everyone who's an attendee gets a discount as an attendee, so we'll send more information about that in an email. I'm going to leave this up for a second so anybody who's here for credits can get that. And then if you could take a second to answer this poll, and then I'm just going to look at the Q&A. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and answer Samantha's question. Can you talk through the performance pulse check a bit more? Those questions are answered quarterly by each manager and employee. See the questions, answers. Okay, so it's a live discussion, right? And so some people might write their answers beforehand and share it with their skip levels. No, I don't think that like the actual written thing that they originally write would be shared with the direct report. It's they have this write up and then their skip levels. So the manager's manager, right? The manager and their manager are talking about, hey, I have so-and-so direct report and I realize that like, I can't confidently say that they're making my job easier. I would like to talk through that with you. And they talk through it and maybe they discover, oh, okay, you're falling short as a manager. Here's the resource. Or like, actually, we as a team haven't created enough clarity and vision about how this role directly impacts the revenue. We as a company need to do X, Y, and Z thing. Or it could be, oh, that does sound like a pretty high risk situation. I need you to address this. Let's talk about how you should do that. And then from there, they follow up and they say very transparently to their direct reports, hey, just had this conversation. As you know, we do this every quarter. You know, here are my takeaways. I want to partner with you on this so that we can get you back on track, or we can make sure that we avoid you going meaningfully off track. Any other questions before we head out? And I'm going to stop sharing just so there's not this big thing there. Okay, cool. Oh, well, thank you so much for, I saw one more question. Okay, I'm gonna very quickly and then we'll sign off. What's your recommended first step to creating that open door for coaching conversations with managers, assuming you're on a lean team? I meet with department leads monthly, but there's an entire other layer I want to better encourage managers. Okay, I'm going to be very transparent with you. Thank you all. I'm going to be very transparent with you and say that I actually prefer to distribute the workload. I actually don't want HR to be the first point of contact. I want their manager to be the first point of contact because it's too much to manage. And I actually want to trust that their manager will surface to me. So the manager's manager or the department head will surface to me when there's a big enough issue that I now need to chat with somebody. So I personally wouldn't lean into getting them to want to go to HR first, but I would want them to lean into speaking up quickly. And I could have been clearer on that. Speaking up quickly if there is an issue, raise it to their manager, and then they pull in HR when it's time for HR to get involved because now it's like officially a performance issue. Thank you all. We are at time. I really appreciate how lively and engaged you were. I always go back and I read the comments afterwards because I can't keep up with them live, but they're so funny and they're so insightful to me. And please keep an eye out for your inbox. We will be sharing an email with tons of resources as well as a free access to a demo of our manager training. And also, I just love you all. Thank you so much for all the birthday wishes. What a great last webinar to do before my next birthday. All right, I will see you all. Goodbye, everyone.